if you were to ask the average person outside of your family or your parents, who's the individual that had the greatest impact on your life, 99% of us would likely say it was either a teacher or a coach that we had at some point in our life. And I know that's true for myself, and that was true for a lot of the other people that were in that room, right? Like a lot of the people that I know who are in careers today are in those very careers because a teacher told them that they were good in that area, or a teacher told them, I really think you would be good at this, or I really think that you would be a good match for this particular role, right? And that's what ended up changing the trajectory of their entire lives, is that conversation or that coach that they worked with. And think about the detrimental impacts it could have on our society if the teachers and the coaches and these people who have these powerful impacts on our lives, if they can't even afford to live in our communities, right? Welcome to the Home Goals Podcast, the ultimate guide for turning your home goals into a reality. I'm your host, Derek Thornton. Join us as we navigate the twists and turns of obtaining a home. We'll be offering expert tips, helping you avoid pitfalls, and championing your journey towards that cherished place to call home. In this week's episode, I actually kind of threw a little bit of a curveball and changed things at the last second based on an event that I attended this very morning. It was a groundbreaking for a new affordable housing area that utilized a kind of a unique option for housing that's out there. So I wanted to take some time to discuss it. And this whole podcast episode is going to revolve around affordable housing that lasts and understanding what's called community land trusts. So these are different profits and organizations that I'm going to talk about in the role that they can play in housing affordability. Now, the entire reason I even started this podcast in the first place was because I wanted to do something to try to address the housing affordability crisis that's out there. And one thing that we know that is very clear is there's no one solution that's going to fix this issue or fix this problem. And we also know that it's definitely not going to happen overnight whenever those things do arise. We know it's going to take a ton of time and a ton of different options, creative resources, programs, the assistance of people who are in my role as realtors, the local government. It's going to take all of us working together and coming up with different options that can help with this process. And so the community land trust option is one that's it's a little bit unique, but I feel like it's also one that can definitely make a huge impact in being able to address this problem or address this issue of housing affordability that we're having in the area. And there's a lot of people that have never even heard of this process or heard of how it works. And so just one kind of talk back to something that happened this morning is, like I said, we were attending a groundbreaking for a new neighborhood that's in our area. And one of the major partners of that groundbreaking or this new development or community is this organization called the Raleigh Area Land Trust. Now, the neighborhood itself is called the Cottages of Idlewild, and it's one of many. There's all kinds of community land trust organizations that are out there across the country. I think they said there's something like 300 across the country. And so this is not necessarily a new process or a new organization that's been invented, but it is unique and newer to this area, right? It's one that's recently started up, especially the one that's in Raleigh. He said they started this one back in 2018, and it's been something that they've been working with and trying to get up and off the ground, and this is kind of one of their major projects that they finally gotten them off the ground. It was a lot of tears shared, a lot of joy and laughter and happiness at being able to reach this point. There's still a ton of work left to go, but it was definitely something that I thought was very interesting and could play a very serious role in helping with housing affordability. And so before I get into the nuts and bolts of that whole process, I first want to talk about just what a community land trust is. It's a nonprofit organization that acquires and holds land in a trust for the benefit of the community, hence the word community land trust. It is basically put in place to ensure long-term affordability, or the word that they use today that I really liked is permanent affordable housing, right? This is something that makes sure that that's going to be the case long into. So I always talk about the predicament that we're in trying to determine how to get affordable housing issues addressed, and the fact that the biggest benefit to owning a home oftentimes is the ability to own or build equity in that property. Right. And so that's one of the biggest advantages to home ownership when you compare it to renting. And a lot of the solutions, or a lot of the things that people will typically come up with in regards to housing affordability, it's usually one person has to be harmed to benefit the other. Right. So it's like hey, you got a lot of buyers out there who are rooting and praying and hoping for a housing crash. But if that did happen, yes, prices would come down lower, but then you've got a sea of homeowners across the country who would be in dire straits because now their home is worth significantly less, right? And so it's always kind of like a give or take. It's like hey, either only one side can be happy at the time. And this particular opportunity kind of provides the best of both worlds in a sense, right? And so basically the way it works is that the trust owns the land, right? The homeowner gets to own the home that the home that's built on that particular land, which is owned by the trust. So most of the time when we purchase a home, or when the average homeowner purchases a property, they own not only the land, or not only the home itself, but they own the land that it sits on, right? We own all the way down to the core of the earth, all the way up to the heavens above, right? That's how most of the time it works. It's usually different from that when you're talking about a condo. So a condo unit is kind of unique in the sense that you own the space inside the walls, but you don't own the land that it sits on. And so that would be somewhat what I would compare this to. But again, if you have a single family home, you own even the space outside of that. You just don't own the land that home sits on in this particular situation. The homeowner leases that land from the trust, and they usually have like a long-term lease in place that's renewable and inheritable, and they can pass it on, right? And so the biggest difference is that the homeowner can build equity in that house, which as I said is the biggest advantage to home ownership, is that the homeowner can build the equity, but the one caveat to that is that the resale prices are usually capped. And so that's to make sure that the homes continue to be affordable. And that's where the whole long-term or permanent option that I referenced comes into play. We want this to be something that is affordable for homeowners for years to come, not just until this first batch of owners gets it up to a new price that they can then give it up, right? So the traditional homeowner, there's no cap whatsoever on how much equity you can have in that house, right? Whatever a buyer is willing to pay for it, that's what you can take, and there's no ceiling to it. There's no restrictions on it. Now, obviously, once it gets past a certain point, you might have to pay some taxes on it, but outside of that, like, there's nothing. If someone says like, hey, I want to buy your $300,000 home for $1 million, there's nothing to stop a homeowner from doing that, right? Or selling it for that price and walking away with all of that equity. With a community land trust, again, you're still paying towards it, right? So they're usually paying down on that mortgage every month. They're usually like paying to make improvements to the house because, again, they own that property, they own that home. And so they're usually paying on it. But again, it's giving them the ability to take advantage of that equity. And so when they do go to sell, there's going to be restrictions on who they can sell to, but the important thing is that it's going to be to people who can actually afford those properties. They're going to put a cap on what you can sell it for, and you still get to walk away with the equity. So again, there is a downside to it when you compare it to traditional home ownership. However, it is far greater than the other option, which most people end up using, which is renting. Renting, 100% of the money that you give up is going completely to someone else, completely paying down their mortgage, where in this case, you get to benefit from that equity. So it's a great tool that's put in place that can really offer a lot of options. Now, affordable housing is a very tricky animal to get around. There's a reason why it took them 7-8 years to kind of start getting to this point, because it requires a ton of people working together. One of the people that I was sitting with told me they explained it to him by saying it's almost like a lasagna, where it's like hey, you're bringing together all these different ingredients and all these different layers, and if any one of those isn't able to do what their job is, or able to do what they said they could do, and being able to contribute or help out, it could ruin the whole thing, or it could cause them to have a serious delays or issues. And so you would not believe the amount of partners that had to come alongside in making just this one project that I went to this morning take place, right? Like it was a shout out to Raleigh Raised Development. That was one of the major partners that kind of helped to put this together. And then also the Raleigh Area Land Trust. But in addition to those two, you had the NC Housing Finance Agency. You had Wells Fargo. You had Coastal Federal Credit Union. You had St. Michael's Church, right? There were so many different partners that had to come together to donate funds, to help with the financing options that were available. There's a lot of people that had to come together, a ton of meetings that had to place. The mayor was at these, our former mayor and our current Raleigh mayor were both present at this thing, and they were very instrumental. Particularly our former mayor, Mary Ann Baldwin, was very instrumental in helping this to come to pass. Right, so you needed their help. You needed the help of city council. You needed the help of the county. There were so many people that had to come together just to make this project work out. And so again, it's not a matter of just like someone can come in and flip a switch and say, hey, we can make this happen and we're good to go. It requires a ton of people coming together with one goal and one purpose in mind. Particularly on this street too, the neighborhood that it was at was dealing with a ton of gentrification, and it still is to this day. You can drive down those roads or drive down that street. It's on Lane Street in Idlewild. If you haven't been down there in Raleigh, you could be driving down that street and you'll see a small little 1,000-square-foot ranch home that's 80 years old that's sitting on one side of the street, and then literally next door there'll be a brand new modern 3,000-square-foot $1.2 million mansion that's right next door, right? That's not uncommon to see on those areas where you can just see the gentrification just starting to take over. And a lot of the people who have been there for years, who have lived in those communities for years, you're starting to see them get priced out of that area and starting to get pushed out. And so it was just a touching event. Being able to attend this meeting and get to see the impact that it truly does have in the community. One of the best things about it, that they had a whole row or group of people who actually live in the community, and they got their input, they got their take on it, and they were sitting right up front as this whole event was taking place, and they were getting to see what was being done to help improve their communities and build them up so that there are other options that are available. One of the founding members of the Raleigh Raised Development, Lavelle Moten, who is very popular person in our community. He's currently the basketball coach for North Carolina Central University. And random fun fact, he actually coached one of the basketball teams that I used to play against when I was in high school, right? And so I've seen the name, I've known of him for years, and he was one that was very involved in the community. He was obviously raised in Raleigh, hence the name Raleigh Raised Development, but he was able to bring together a lot of different people who were instrumental in helping pull all of this together. And he got up and spoke and gave just a very touching word on just everything that he had been seeing happening and why they started this, what led to them being able to get going up with this. And one of the things that he said that really stuck out to me was actually a really sweet story, but his middle school, I believe it was his 7th grade middle school teacher, it had a profound impact on just kind of the way that he saw the world, and also like gave him some advice that kind of led him down the path that he is currently on today, and just had a very profound impact on his life. And she was actually in attendance for that particular groundbreaking. So it was a really sweet moment. But he said something that really stuck out to me. He said, you know, if you were to ask the average person outside of your family or your parents, who's the individual that had the greatest impact on your life, 99% of us would likely say it was either a teacher or a coach that we had at some point in our life. And I know that's true for myself, and that was true for a lot of the other people that were in that room. Right, like a lot of the people that I know who are in careers today are in those very careers because a teacher told them that they were good in that area, or a teacher told them, I really think you would be good at this, or I really think that you would be a good match for this particular role, right? And that's what ended up changing the trajectory of their entire lives, is that conversation or that coach that they worked with. And think about the detrimental impacts it could have on our society if the teachers and the coaches and these people who have these powerful impacts on our lives, if they can't even afford to live in our communities. Right, it could have just damaging effects that we won't even realize for years to come. Right, and so that was just something that was very special. Really stuck out to me. I mean, you think not even just the teachers and coaches, but even the police officers, the firemen, the first responders, all these people who are crucial to a community. If they can't even afford to live in those houses or in those areas, we are really setting ourselves up to be in a dangerous position, right? And so these options, this is just one, again, I said, of many different options that are available. But I think it's really up to us to kind of, one, make sure we have a clear understanding of it and how it can help people, and be able to kind of walk people through those situations and determine if that's the best fit for them. This isn't going to be the best fit for everybody. There are some people, there are going to be like income restrictions. And so even people who would love to take advantage of it, they may not necessarily qualify. But it is just the first step of many in being able to address this crisis. This particular subdivision that they referenced, they're doing 14 homes for sale, and I believe it was 4 rental properties, right? So they do a little bit of mix of both, but just going to begin to bring some additional options on there. And if this goes well, it could lead to a far greater impacts. It could lead to a lot more options that are available. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who would love to donate, but they kind of want to see how things work out with this first before they do. This could be something that leads to even more investment and more donations, but ultimately it's impacting and positively helping the community at large and giving people those options that are available. There's still a lot of people who don't really understand how community land trusts work, and so it's going to be up to not only just the general public, but also people like myself who are agents in the community understanding how these things work. It's up to lenders to understand too how it works and being able to help people with that. There was one lender in this particular event that I went to who talked about they were even able to figure out a way to offer a cheaper rate, like 2% below, or 2 basis points, I say, below the market rate for some of the loans for these properties, right? So again, those are just massive changes in just people's ability to be able to afford these properties and afford these houses that they play, right? And so it's definitely on us to make sure that we look into these options and come alongside and support them whenever we can. There's always going to be imperfect things that are going on. There's always going to be things that we wish we could do better, things we could tweak, but the important thing is that there is something in place, which is working to address that affordability. There may be people who hear this story and think, oh, well, I mean, 14 houses, that's a drop in the bucket. Again, it's a huge difference to the people in the community who are desperately in need of this, right? And we have to start somewhere. It's not going to necessarily start automatically overnight with 1,000 home neighborhood that's being built that's going to immediately address this problem. No, we are millions of housing units short in our country. And again, it's going to take multiple solutions. This is just one of many, but it's one that I think is very innovative, is creative, and it helps address the problems and try to meet people both ways. So this not necessarily one person or one group of people is able to win, but only at the expense of another, right? And so it's definitely something that I feel like can be a huge help And I invite you to research and look up land trusts that are in your local area, right? There's not just the one that's in Raleigh. Durham has one as well. But again, they said there are like 300 in the country, right? And so I would definitely research and look to see if there's one near you, one that you could see if you could come alongside and support. It's definitely going to take a collective effort. And I'm sure they are always in the need of more opportunities and more options, more funding to help them. Right? I talked about this in one of my very first podcast episodes, but they said the old adage goes, or the old saying goes, that like, hey, buy land. They're not making any more of it. We're dealing with a finite resource in land, and whoever controls that is going to play a huge role in how this whole crisis is impacted, right? And so this is just a way that we can kind of come alongside and look to learn more about addressing this housing affordability crisis. And so I hope that that's interesting to you all. It's definitely something that I have been very intrigued by and want to learn more about myself. But I wanted to take time to talk about that and how that could be something that may be an option for yourself, or it could be something that you want to help partner alongside to help address this housing crisis that we're dealing with in our world. So hope that you all found that helpful. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you next week.